Welcome to Ethical Edge Insights, Conversations with ChangeMakers, a space for deeply reflective conversations with those shaping our world. Here we explore their journeys, their greatest challenges, their most significant contributions to date, the contributions they seek to make, and how ethics have shown up along the way. Join us as we uncover the stories that shape our shared future. Well, good afternoon or good morning, or I have to touch all parts of the world here because I'm speaking to Vincent today, who is in Asia, and he can tell us where specifically shortly. So, in fact, Vincent, this is my first ChangeMakers conversation with someone in Asia, so I'm quite excited about that point of difference. And you'll be speaking at the Coaching Ethics Forum 2025 conference. So I'm looking forward to what you and the rest of the panel from Asia are going to be speaking about. But for us today, could you tell us who you are, where you are, and then we'll continue on from there.
Sure thing. And a very good evening to you, Wendy-Ann. I'm from Singapore. I'm based in Singapore. My name is Vincent Wong. I am a coach, a supervisor, an educator, and I would like to call myself a philosopher
A
in
philosopher.
the traditional sense of a student of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Student of knowledge. Go on.
right. I lost my thought. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm ready to ask you another question. It's all right. So when we to land us in these conversations, I like people to talk a little bit about where they've come from professionally and kind of what's inspired them in the end to drop where they are now, to land where they are now. So if you could tell us some about your professional history, wherever you want to start. You can start from babyhood if you can remember. It's up to you.
Sure thing. So my path into coaching is a little unconventional. I'm a physicist and I dabbled into the world of fintech
Uh,
and finally to coaching. So this is my personal quest to find answers, and that what led me into engineering. And I hold the belief that to build a better world, it starts with building a better me. So as a physicist, I know how the external physical world works. In the fintech, I know how the financial world works. And coaching introduced to me a description of how the inner mind works. I realized that I've been doing over a decade of coaching, but I just didn't have the language for it back then.
yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That you've been coaching longer than you realized you were coaching.
Exactly. Oh, and as an avid learner, I spent considerable amount of resources. It's not just money, but mostly time. Not just studying how to coach, but various coaching models, the
Mhm.
foundations of ICF,
Mhm.
foundations of EMCC,
Mhm.
supervision. And the more I learned, the more I felt there's a responsibility to share it. Oh, I missed one important part here.
Mhm.
The part where why would I give up a lucrative fintech position to go into coaching?
Yeah, exactly. Have you let go of the lucrativeness or what?
It's just not me. I'm
Mhm.
not the kind who is out to make $1 billion, right? I'm trying to find my purpose in life. And I got into coaching as personal development, not as professional development. I just want to
Mhm.
be a better.
That's interesting. So, you know, when I said it doesn't surprise me that you were coaching long before you realized that you were coaching because you didn't have the language to it. You know, something I know about physicists is they're always asking questions, and I'm sure you were asking questions about the human condition alongside all your physics studies. But tell us about where your interest was within physics, if you had a specialization. I'd like to know more about that and how that led you to fintech.
I have a PhD in quantum optics.
Mhm.
So it's a very niche field of quantum mechanics.
Mhm.
I think in high school, you've been taught classical physics, Newton's law, what goes up must come down. Right? So the classical physics describe what we can see. Uh, we describe the phenomena, the cause and effect, why things turn out the way they are. And in quantum mechanics, we describe things we can't see with the naked eye. It's beyond using a microscope. A microscope won't see it. It's even much smaller, that something is disturbing our material world. And it's just throwing off all the physical theories, the physical classical theories that we have. And I've been trying to connect coaching with physics. And
Mhm.
that's how I started this project on behavioral physics,
Mm.
using physical phenomena, physical theory and concepts to describe what's going on in the mind as well as in the process. This can help to explain phenomena, etc., to non-psychology background people. I guess in every niche, there's a lot of jargons and you won't know
Yeah.
what the heck we're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think physicists are like technical people. We are really good in our field, but we know nothing and we don't care about anything outside our field. So I used to have a phrase, leave me alone in a windowless lab and let me do my experiment. Don't bother me. So that went on for, I don't know, years. I'm really happy, but just one day I thought, something's not right. I'm missing something.
Humanity.
Not quite that yet. Not quite there yet. And this, as wonderful as capitalism is, uh, there's no but here. The world operates, the world is kind of driven by money. And I
Mm.
thought I need to know how the world works. And that's why I got into the fintech.
Mhm.
Right? And yep, with a few years in the fintech, in the financial industry, I know how the money world works, but nah, that's not for me. This doesn't align with the inner me.
Mhm.
And that's why I started, let's dabble a little bit on what's inside the subatomic part of a human body.
What have you found so far?
Wow. It's almost like someone on their journey to a Nobel Prize. They're discovering new things. Uh, we want, like, the human race wants to explore space,
Mhm. Yeah.
but just look at our oceans. Have we understand our deep oceans yet? No, we have not.
Mm.
Similarly, we want to explore something else, but do we know our mind?
Mm.
Barely there. Uh,
Mm.
be it neuroscience, be it psychology, etc. We just scratch the surface of it. At
Mm.
least I have.
No, I think we have too, and I like that framing that we've only just scratched the surface of it because, Sometimes I think as humans, particularly, in psychology, so the science of human thought, emotional behavior, we get a bit lax, I think, and think, well, we've got evidence base for this, so we can make this claim, we can say this. And then I think it does us really good to have a little bit of an ego shake around to go, oh, there's a bit of humility in that. And so let's ask more questions, because actually maybe we don't really know all that we know. And so I think this is I like this framing that we've only just scratched the surface, because when we frame it that way, then we have to ask more questions, because inherently we want to know more.
Exactly. And I guess my background gave me an advantage here. Like for a layperson, if you give them the headlines, they'll take it,
Mm.
right? For example, let's use weight loss. I think everybody's least favorite topic. There was a paper published that says you grow fat when you eat fat, and people take it as it is. But
Yeah.
if you read the scientific paper itself, it would tell you the boundary conditions of the study.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it apply? Where does it not apply? And you can't take that context anymore, right? So that's a good thing that yes, we do know a little bit, but I am well aware that piece of knowledge has boundaries that makes it valid. And once we're out of this boundary, hey, the sky's the limit. It could be anything. And that's the beauty of science, right? You can prove something today, and tomorrow somebody could just disprove it.
Yeah. So tell me a little more about how you're going about this inquiry of yours into the human condition.
So it started off as a pet project for my supervision training, right? So I went through coach supervision, and as I learned new things about psychology, etc., I tried to bring myself, my background into what I'm learning as well. Because I'm not going to be a new person just because I'm doing supervision now. I was a physicist.
Mm.
Probably I'm still a physicist. Can pull it out of me, right? And that was the thing that I'm trying to reconcile. How do I align these two different fields of knowledge?
Mm.
Firstly, for me to understand it better,
Mm.
and hopefully for me to explain it to someone else that's outside the field.
Mm.
So that's something that I've been doing along, uh, particularly on behavioral ethics. I have just given a talk at the APEC conference just last month
Mhm.
at Sarawak, Kuching, and I have some posts on it on LinkedIn. And there'll be more about behavioral ethics this coming few months if you're interested to hear about it or read
Yeah,
about it.
well, tell me a little bit more while we're here, please.
So when we see a particular action or behavior,
Mm.
we usually associate it with something, cause and effect, right? As a scientist, usually we try to gather more data. And with enough data, you can associate it with a particular cause, evidence-based. But there is not everything can be seen or observed right away. Some things are a little bit deeper, and that's how I like to describe the difference between classical physics and quantum physics, right? You can't see it by eye. You have to measure it with some other means, invent the tool or whatever. You have to do that. And these unseen things are the hidden driving forces. For example, a person's value, a person's ethical standing. These are things that drive certain behavior. Right? It's not about talking ethics. I'm going to do this. I won't do that. Right. And but when you're put into the situation, hey, it's beyond your amygdala. Sorry, it's beyond your prefrontal cortex to drive your action.
Yeah, I think there's many parts of who we are as humans that actually drives our decision making around that. In fact, just recently, earlier this year, I've published a paper which actually describes the psychological and sociological uh, underpinnings of a lot of the basis of our decision making, and that's called the courageous becoming. It's published in the Journal of Coaching Ethics. I don't know if you've seen that or not, but it might be of interest to you.
Definitely.
Pretty complex model. One of the reviewers suggested it's a whole book. If I were to ever want to write a book, there's certainly enough in that paper to base a book on, which I think is true, but I don't have it in me right now. So you might be interested in that paper, is why I mention it.
Definitely, I'll go look for it.
Since you're along this line of inquiry. So you've had at least 3 careers that you've told us about, and across those whole 3 careers, or even in your personal life or outside of work, perhaps, what do you feel has been your most significant or meaningful contribution so far?
To the practice or
Anything you like.
to humanity?
I broadened that question so you could land it anywhere you want to.
Well, in terms of coaching, I would say it has to be that framework that I've developed so far, behavioral physics. Right? It really drives how it really looks deep into how a coaching session can turn out. There is an infinite number of possibilities which with each action, and then there's a different infinite number of possibilities after each action. And the key thing is to try to get to the hidden logic and the unconscious drivers for our behavior. You might call that transformational coaching. And it is related. So transformational coaching models has a similar objective. And typically they are very non-directive, right? The way the coach is trained in general focuses on the coach's methodology. Defining your coaching niche is a common, I would call it justification by them. But to me, that's just demographic restriction. But with this framework, it is not a model or methodology. In fact, it frees the practitioner from a single method. So instead of fitting real world clients into a model, we try to fit the model to the client. So the focus shifts from the coach's niche to the client's reality. So I believe that's my most significant contribution so far.
Well, I'd love to see how you actually bring that forward in a form that we can all work with. And something it just makes me think about another piece of research that I've been a part of, and that was looking at about, you know, what are the stories that experienced coaches tell us about their coaching, and what sense can we make of it? And one of the facets that was present was how they knew models of coaching, they understood frameworks of coaching, but as they grew in their coaching practice, they were able to loosen the reins of those frameworks and weren't holding them in place, guiding their coaching. Rather, they were sitting in the background. And I called it letting go, in fact, that you start to let go the more mature, more experienced you become. And so this was a pretty strong outcome, pretty strong narrative in our coaching cohort that we were interviewing for a qualitative research.
Indeed. And I think a lot of experienced practitioners do that.
Yeah.
And what happens at that moment?
Mm.
How much do you loosen? Where do you go from there? It becomes Wild Wild West again.
Well, potentially, but I think it can do. If coaches don't recognize the value of the frameworks and perhaps the research that's gone into those frameworks to give them some credibility to be in place, if they if they if they don't learn them in the first instance, then I think we're going back to the wild, wild west. But if coaches can, at any point in time, and I've brought this from my psychological clinical training, in fact, because as a therapist, if you get questioned about why did you do that intervention then, or what were you wanting to know at that point in time, why did you ask that question? You need to land it in some piece of research, science, evidence framework that you're working with. And I carry that through into the coaching. And so any training I've done in coaching, I've always said to them, if I ask you a question about that, you need to be able to give me the rationale based on the research outcomes that we know and the framework, etc. So I think if you're doing that and you are able to answer that question each and any time it's given to you, then we're not walking in wild, wild west. But I don't think any of the coaching bodies have any of that kind of competency in place at this point in time. In fact, they're doing crazy things like saying they're going to assess intuition, which kind of just, I'm like, who on earth wrote that competency that they would say intuition is something that you can assess as a competency? Is beyond me. It's their brand new competencies. So I'm getting really critical about that. I want to shut up because that just like threw me off left field.
So exactly. So in coaching, we have supervision that does something similar, except that in coaching supervision, there is no wrong answer. And I'm trying to look into something that experienced practitioner can use, can work on, even after they are at the experience level.
Yeah.
Something else to guide them.
Okay. So you're going to elevate us potentially is what you're looking at.
I should hope so.
I told you my cat's just come inside and she's really not very happy with me. She's just that loud bang is she's now stopped crying and whinging at me, and she's pushed one of my magazines to the floor. So that's what's happening
Give
behind
my
me.
attention.
She's now settled down on my handbag, so that's the closest she can get to me, I guess, to have a little bit of a nap. So you mentioned behavioral ethics. So I want to know, clearly you've been thinking about this, you've given a recent presentation at APAC, etc. So tell me about how ethics has guided your decision making.
You may be aware I have a compliance background, although specifically I serve as a point man. So I've pioneered research directions. I've created the compliance framework for my global group of fintech companies. And it's not about enforcing rules. It's about understanding the architecture and purpose. I've always been a principled rebel. I need to understand the why behind a law or a rule, challenge it if I felt it no longer served the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
So that has been driving what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And because I am comfortable reading legal statutes, research papers in depth to fully understand the concepts and boundaries, uh, this become my nature when I do things, and it guides me that way.
Yeah. So you mentioned compliance, and you've pioneered a framework of compliance. Tell me how that sits for you. Compliance, ethics. For me, they're two very different things. They lean into each other a little bit, but they are not the one and the same. And my most recent thinking about that is I think every person who's been given a role that says they are Director of Ethics and Compliance, they need to stop right now and actually separate them into two separate roles because they're giving the wrong message. That's my thought. So I would love to see two roles created and that whole title line separated. But you tell me about your thoughts about those two concepts, please.
Indeed. I mean, even in the fintech, you only have a role called the head of compliance, right? There's no head of licensing, for example, which is the equivalent of ethics. Let me give you an example here. There are certain texts in the now obsolete, or I call it past, code of ethics and the core competencies, right? Particularly about maintaining the distinction between coaching and consulting, and the other one is about sharing observations. So there is this narrow communal understanding that ICF's definition of coaching implies no sharing of coaches' personal information.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever knowledge, you can only be a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
I dissect the words a lot further. So the question I asked was, what is maintain distinction? I don't just look at the word coaching and consultancy. I look at maintain distinction. You could maintain distinction between coaching and consultancy by not doing consultancy at all,
Mm-hmm.
or something else, right? There is another competency about using the awareness of self and intuition uh, to benefit the client. So
Mm-hmm.
where does this come in if I can't share anything about myself to the client?
Mm-hmm.
And I think in competency 7, right, you can share insights and feelings, but not other data. Why not?
Yeah. What's the difference?
Yeah. So all this data can, what I'll use the word contaminate the client's thinking if it's not done
Yeah.
properly.
I think it's about, I think the competencies across any of the coaching bodies try to build themselves to hit every possible mark that you possibly can in any kind of coaching relationship. And then they lose it altogether because they make it it's very complex, but for them to think they can hit every mark of the complexity of the relationship is just crazy thinking. It makes me think, are they actual coaches that are creating them? It makes me wonder about, or wonder what level of experience they're at or something, because it just like it's the same, seems to me really odd that they would do that. But in fact, what is more important than whether you share or not is how you share it. That's what
Exactly.
they should be assessing. Has this person invited the co-relationship person to receive more knowledge? If they want it, if they say yes, then you can give it. That's where the assessment should be, not on all this other stuff that they're talking about.
So exactly. So this communal understanding or interpretation of the core competency, a lot of coaches are doing compliance.
Yeah.
Like this, right?
Yep.
I view what I did as being ethically responsible to my client.
Mm-hmm.
I'm focused on them to provide a service with just value. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to shortchange them. Even if people are pointing fingers at me and say, no, you are breaching the code of ethics. Come on, let's sit down. I can argue clauses with you whole day long, no problem. And it is a little bit gratifying to see the recently updated sorry, core competencies that describe it a little bit clearer, especially these particular nuances. And there's been a lot of discussion online in the various forums.
About it. Oh, I'm still bamboozled by the fact that they think they can assess intuition, but anyway, that and it's just landed as a revised competency booklet. So how often do all these coaching bodies take to put out new versions of competencies?
There is almost something new every year.
Okay.
And the last core competency was in 2019.
Oh, wow.
So that
Okay. So it could be a
is quite
while.
a competence.
Well, that's not good. Oh, that's a long time between major transitions between one to the other. So there we go.
Sign up to EMCC. Oops.
Oh, dearie me. So I want to dig into a little bit more of your own experiences, some of the things that pathways you've had to travel that have been challenging. But I would love it if you could share with us one particular experience, a challenge that you've had, and or keeping anonymity if you can. Tell us about, what that story was and what you had to do and where it all ended.
A really significant one and one that strike us really deep. Uh, sorry, me and my partner. She's a coach as well. So this incident was multiple ethical breaches
Mm-hmm.
among I will call it the sea of misrepresentation.
Mm-hmm.
Right, I'm an ICF coach when I haven't even graduated from a coaching education.
Mm-hmm.
So I pondered it for a while, and then we followed the protocol and brought it up to a senior regional rep. And we were told that it is my responsibility to escalate to the HQ myself. Hmm. That brought me to a dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want to be the bad guy, or do I want to do good for the community, like it's the professional coaching community?
By reporting someone who was who was an ICF coach but hadn't trained, is that correct?
A person who is still undergoing training.
Ah,
So no way this person is credentialed.
okay.
And they are already offering coach training courses.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Wow. Are those coach training courses being accredited by any of the coaching bodies?
yeah.
Oh, that's huge. Okay, tell us more. Now I understand fully. That's massive. Okay. Listening.
So what my partner and I did, I mean, we could brainstorm and then try to play devil's advocate and figure out what to do next. But instead, what we did was something really interesting. I'll call it mutual systemic supervision, right? So where we use supervision in our dialogue. So it's not a supervision session where I'm the supervisor, you're the client, right? We are both acting as a supervisor and a supervisor while we talk.
Mm,
And we decided, okay, I think this is really significant enough. There is no I we have given enough benefit of doubt. This is very clear-cut breach and multiple
mm,
breaches.
yeah.
So we brought it up to HQ.
Mm,
Unfortunately, the actions taken is less than ideal.
mm,
So this taught me a few things.
mm-hmm,
Ethics is inherently a spectrum.
mm-hmm.
So it's
Absolutely.
not about you are ethical or you're not ethical,
Mm-hmm,
as is demonstrated by different parties
mm-hmm.
involved in this incident. And I do realize that accrediting bodies, they're trying to balance best practices versus rule, depending on what their objective, what their organizational objectives are, right? Whether, especially in a non-government regulated industry, uh, do they how strong do they want to establish this entity, or how fast do they want to drive market share as in
Yeah,
membership?
yeah. And that's
And
causing, I think, huge problems, in fact.
yeah, and it shows the ethical side of the current decision makers in the
Yeah,
body.
yeah.
And that reminded me that ethics is about oneself. So our primary guide is our own conscious. Right? There's a Chinese saying, "Xing an li de," which translates to "a clear conscience brings peace."
I think it is about oneself and having a clear conscience of oneself, but just because you choose a particular pathway to walk can have ramifications that can still leave you awake at night, even though you have a clear rationale for the pathway you walked. And I also think, added to that, that it's beyond the individual, because what's right for me in this context, in this culture, is not going to land in another person's context and in another person's culture. And that can also leave me awake at night, even though I have full belief that what I've chosen is the right thing. I think there are lots of people who maybe don't have a stronger conscience as others and have full belief in what they do, and we would not claim them to be anywhere near the ethical halfway mark of whatever high point of ethics could be. So from that to putting the broad spectrum of the human condition makes it even more complex about
In
where you land on that ethical spectrum.
Indeed. So you brought up another dimension to the table, right? So it's not just a measure of where your ethical stance are in a linear scale.
Mm,
Does it, whatever you have a clear understanding of, does it align with your inner self? Maybe it doesn't. My purpose in life is to be a billionaire, and I'll do whatever to make my first billion.
mm-hmm,
Does that, I'm very clear on my objective, what I need to do, right? But does that align with the self?
mm-hmm,
And when everything aligns, I think that's only then would it bring peace
mm-hmm. Peace for whom?
for yourself. The world could be burning, but you're still fast asleep.
I think there's so much we could explore just on that one point alone about peace of self and peace of the world. And, you're a physicist, so maybe we'll get into some of that energy transference that we got going around the place. But then you're a quantum physicist, so maybe you don't care about the energy. I'm not so sure.
But the energy could be passing to you without you noticing it.
Yeah. So there's so much to explore there, much more than what time we have on this chat conversation to have. So if I can ask you another question so we can keep moving through as we get near to the end of the conversation, and that is that what do you think is the most pressing issue we have in today's world, and what are you going to do about it?
I believe the most pressing issue is a fundamental one. What is professional coaching? I see this industry is trying to carve a footing for itself, similar to project management, cybersecurity, anti-money laundering,
Mm,
what they're doing, and what the field of accounting, medicine, and engineering has done.
mhm,
So recently, I've come across gym instructors and tuition teachers advertising themselves as coaches.
mhm.
This is not just a branding issue, it's an existential threat to our profession. So while some of us are debating, are you goal oriented, process oriented, a third generation coach, and all the nuances in between, I think we have to deal with this. It would be beneficial to put our effort on this topic as well. And adverse media from one unqualified coach pretty much undermines all the credibility that we work so hard for, right?
Yeah.
Now, creating the coaching ethics forum, creating the conferences, etc. So I've been exploring volunteer roles with different accrediting bodies, trying to understand their strategies on this topic. And concurrently, I run a credentialing exam preparation program, right? And that's my direct response to it. So this program bridges coach training and credential readiness. What are your thoughts about the coverage adequacy of ICF Core Competency 1 and 2, if you're familiar with that, coaching ethics?
So I'm not particularly familiar with those competencies in the detail that you might, purely because I'm not an ICF accredited coach. In fact, I have deliberately chosen not to be accredited with any coaching body because I am a registered psychologist and I'm a coaching psychologist and have been for over 20 years. So I'm really governed and determined by my psychology registration, which actually spans 3 countries.
Mhm.
So that's the interest I take in terms of the depth of the codes. I have given feedback on the ICF codes. I was asked to do that, and so I had a conversation around them from the little bit I knew of them. I've had to look into them a little bit more deeply, but it's not at top of mind for Ethics Beyond the Code course for its credentialing. I don't know what they're doing with it all because it supersedes anything they require around ethics. So I think it's a challenging one for them to accredit. We'll see what they do with it. And in fact, it's a course that supersedes anything any of the universities are teaching around ethics in coaching or for leadership. Like, it really gives something very unique around ethics for the world, really, if I want to put it that broadly. So there's my long answer for a short answer of I have no idea. But I do have
Don't worry.
an answer to the question about what I'm doing in relation to you querying, the reputation of coaching and the communication that goes out from some peoples who are maybe misrepresenting what coaching claims itself to be. So something that's been happening is over the last 12 months, I've convened all the coaching bodies, all the heads of the coaching bodies for safeguarding the integrity of coaching. And one of the first outcomes of those get-togethers has been an article called Coaching: A Guide for the Curious. I've published it in my magazine, Ethical Edge Insights, but I've made the actual article itself, which is co-authored and endorsed by many coaching bodies. I've made it freely public available, and I've translated into Mandarin, Arabic, Spanish, Portuguese. So that's one, and the very reason for that article was to, as a collective, change the narrative, give a common piece of work that's putting it out there to the space. Unfortunately, so far, the coaching bodies have not promoted it in their they have the articles to freely, the PDFs of them all, they have them there to put them on their websites, to freely distribute them and use it for the common good that we wrote it, but none of them have done that so far. So I've been trying to do that through the Coaching Ethics Forum and through my magazine, Ethical Edge Insights.
This is so useful. Don't worry. I'll promote it for you.
Thank you. Maybe they've got it planned for later on, but I mean, it's been out since August. I'm like, why would you not want to get something like that out as soon as possible? It's ready, done, go for it. So
Let me get the ball rolling. Right.
I have
So
been instructed that I need to go grassroots, need to get coaches to share it out so as it gets done. So
we work from the bottom up.
yeah.
So coming back to the topic, so in coaching education, I would say they teach you how to coach.
Mm-hmm.
So ICF core competency 1 ethics and core competency 2 a coaching mindset. They are just briefly covered. But in the credentialing exam, the question coverage on these 2 competency is pretty significant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I created this program to reach aspiring coaches to help them be confident in getting their credentials.
Great. That's wonderful to hear. How new is this credentialing exam, the latest version?
What do you mean by how new?
When was the latest version put out?
Oh, my program?
No, from ICF.
Oh, when was so the most recent change was this year
Yeah,
for the ACC level at the beginners level,
yeah.
right, where they changed the format from scenario based to a knowledge base, multiple choice knowledge base. Basically makes it easier. I think the scenario base was too difficult.
Really? So what's, we'll take that offline. So, are there any final words you'd like to leave us with as we close out this conversation?
First of all, thank you for giving me the space in your podcast for this conversation. And I'll leave your listeners this question that I ask myself often. Why are you here? Then think about the how. As a career choice, if you want to make big bucks, this is the wrong industry. If you want to make a living, there are tons of jobs that are less mentally stressing. If you want to help people, just go do community service. If you're looking to get a set of skills, I believe the skills from coaching is really invaluable for living, even more so than for your career advancement. So focus on deepening your skills and don't be bothered what professional coaches wants to be seen acting. And for the professional coaches that are listening, our work delves into the core of a person. It's a tool that can rival a scalpel. It can heal and it can cause unintentional harm. So I won't just leave you with use it wisely. That's just not enough. The real message will be contemplate where your ethics truly sits and then bring your uncertainties, your fears, your triumph to supervision.
Nice ending. Thank you so much for this really engaging and intriguing conversation.
Thank you very much for having me.